Today I'd like to talk about purification through disinfection. As you know, many of you know, we're at the Abbey. We've been disinfecting our water system because we've gotten bacteria in the system, and also we're preparing for connecting our water tanks up to the Buddha Hall water tanks, and so we want our system to be very clean. And as you know, I also love playing with analogies, and so I thought the disinfection analogy is a perfect one for purification of the mind. So I'll go through the 4 opponent powers and also describe what we're doing with our water system. So the first power, opponent power for purification, is regret, acknowledging that I've acted in some unskillful way, which is due to having a mind that's confused under the influence of ignorance, karma, and the afflictions. And water pipes get corrosion, algae, and biofilm, which is kind of just a natural process, but allows for bacteria to grow. And at the Abbey, we test our water monthly to make sure that it is clean. But for purification practice, an indicator of needing to do purification practice is knowing when I'm getting kind of emotionally gunky, where I'm getting overreactive, irrational thinking, or ruminating on the same thought over and over again is a good indication that purification needs to happen. That there's some inaccurate layer of wrong conception that's covering up the real understanding of the situation. And so purification practice is a wonderful way to remove that gunk and confusion and to see things more clearly. The second step of purification practice is reliance or refuge. So instead of focusing on that gunk and harm, to actually turn the mind to something that represents the exact opposite state of that mind, to reflect on the Buddha, qualities of pure wisdom and compassion, the ability to act skillfully in any situation, a mind of just pure clarity and wisdom, which can bring effective action through having that pure, clear mind. So in disinfecting our Abbey's water system, we turned to using bleach in the form of 7.5% sodium hypochlorite, and also relying on the wisdom of our water engineer guru, Kevin. The third remedial action is some sort of positive action. The third part of purification practice is a remedial action, which is some sort of positive action, which is the polar opposite of the harmful action that was done. You can do mantras, prostrations, visualizations, helping others, anything that shifts the mind and that energy away from a harmful intention into something that's positive and beneficial. So at the Abbey water system, we added 1 liter of bleach into the water tanks and let them sit in the water and then slowly work down the lines into all the faucets. But for it to be effective, it has to sit 24 hours in the system. Bleach kills bacteria by destroying the proteins in the cells. And bleach also gets bound up with other non-organic elements or metals or minerals and makes it ineffective. So for purification practice to really be effective, it takes time. It takes time and effort for it to really have a truly effective result. And so this winter I was able to do the Vajrasattva retreat. So 3 months, 7 hours a day is a long time, and to have a concentrated practice, and it did produce very, very good results. Another part of purification practice is you can't just focus on one thing. You have to do the whole system. You can't just focus on one negative action. You have to look at everything. And in a water system, you have to purify every spigot, every pipe, every little corner and crevice. Nothing can be left out, because then that can be a place for the bacteria to grow. So in doing purification practice inwardly, during the Vajrasattva, I did a very slow, long life review, which was very good in really teasing apart all those little seemingly unconnected patterns, seemingly unconnected events in my life, that as I did the review, I could see how they were connected. And it made it a lot harder to blame the individual on separate actions or separate events when I could see the pattern connecting my responsibility and my part of the the situation in many different situations. And so it made me really take responsibility for my actions and see what my part was by looking at all of those different parts and pieces over a long time period. And the third, or the fourth powerful action of the purification process is the resolve, not to do the action again, to not keep letting the afflictions and self-centered thought that creates all this gunk and pollution in the form of harmful actions that only harm myself and others, to stop acting in that way, and to also be aware of the holes in the system of how I'm influenced by other people and influenced by different ideas in society, and to be aware of how that influences my thoughts and actions, to actually really guard the senses and to cultivate that mindfulness and introspective alertness, to kind of be on guard of not acting in harmful ways again. For the Abbey water system, that means making sure that there's no leaks or holes that can let bacteria in, and to keep testing the system and to stay alert to if there's any leaks or drips in faucets or anything, which also saves water. One way to know that purification practice is working is at the end of the Vajrasattva retreat, I was feeling lighter, fresher, and cleaner. I even had the phrase, "so fresh and so clean," going through my head. And, and I literally felt 20 pounds lighter and 3 inches taller. So it was really effective in feeling that kind of emotional gunk getting purified. At the Abbey, we know that our purification is working because we test it. At the beginning, we test the amount of chlorine that is in the pipes. And then 24 hours later, we test it again to see how much of that chlorine got bound up by bacteria and other impurities, and to make sure that we still have a high level of chlorine that was effective. I was thinking about how kind of mantra and reflecting on emptiness and bodhicitta is a way of dissolving that solidity, that view of a separate self, which is what keeps us locked into our negative views. And so how that can be so effective in teasing things apart. And it's kind of the same of bleach, of just breaking things up and not making them so solid. And so it's so important to keep remembering how we're so connected and not solid and always changing. One other part of purification practice that I think is important is rejoicing, of really acknowledging, having the courage and the honesty to look honestly at yourself and acknowledge that I'm human and that I make mistakes, but that I have the ability to change and to grow. I know during Vajrasattva, there were 3 words that kept coming through my mind of clarity, purity, and unity. And I think that just really reflected kind of the highest truth and the highest clarity that our mind is potential of, those qualities also are expressed in water. Also, the clarity, purity, and unity, that water unifies everything, and in its highest state, it's clear and pure and reflects things and transforms things. So may we rejoice in our purification practice, in identifying when we have gunk or confusion in our minds, and know that we do have effective ways of purifying it so that we can have clean, clear water and clean, clear minds in our hearts.